Hi, this is Austin with Sprint 7. So my main priority this time, game-wise, was getting the full game loop implemented. So I'll go ahead and show that off first. So I made some art for the various screens. So this is the start screen. I hit 1 to go into the game. You can see that I replaced all the textures with new ones that I found myself that you should not have, that should not be in your file. So I also have all 3 levels fully implemented. Well, more or less fully implemented. All the terrain is there. Each one has a different texture. I have a different starting position. You can see I'm right by the wall on this one, and the enemy spawns over there. There are other enemies, but I'm only spawning this one right now to make it easier to get through the level, so I can show off all 3. So there we go. Here's my boss enemy. He shoots 3 bullets. They deal 2 damage each. And if I go up and hit him, he's just going to kill me in 1 hit. So there's that. There's my game over screen. So I can, from here, I don't have to restart. I can hit enter, and that takes him back. So you no longer have to reboot the game every time you lose, which I think is important. Alright, so I cheated my way back to the boss, or didn't cheat, but edited out my getting back here. So I've hit him enough times that hopefully he should be dying fairly soon. One thing I forgot to mention is that the boss also, his bullets go further, so that's something. And he's dead. And there's my win screen. So I'm gonna go ahead and reboot here to show off my personal project work as well. So back to the first level, I will come over here. And once say I'll get far enough away, well, I guess it doesn't really matter. I can pause, new screen by the way, unpause, and everything now remains where it was. Bullets, tank, enemy, camera. The camera is actually set by the tank, but it still remains in the same spot. So you can see that bullet still there. That bullet that I just fired is still there as well. And also the enemies did not respawn, the ones that have already died, because that was an issue that I was having for a little bit. So fixed that as well. Right now, the pause only works with the first level because I realized that my system needs some way to detect what level was stored. So I'm going to be adding that to my document for the next sprint. So that's I think that's everything in the actual game. So I'll show off the code now. So up here in the storage node, you can see I have a tag of length 16, which I use to store a string to determine what kind of object is being stored there. I also have a couple booleans that weren't here before because some things do need to store true-false values. So my base scene, what it does is it essentially does a switch statement that's not a switch statement because it's not the kind of enum that you can do a switch statement with because I'm doing a string compare. But anyway, I go through a series of checks to determine what tag I've got. And the fact that this is a series of if checks shouldn't be too big of a deal, by the way, because recreate is only called once after initialize whenever a game is loaded. So that shouldn't be a problem, since I know you're probably thinking that. But yeah, only once per load of scene, so it's not done an update or anything. But anyway, it'll call to the correct override function based on that. Tank Manager and Enemy Manager both just call override on their respective object. The enemy count determines what enemy gets overridden. Since the enemies are always loaded in the same order, it just goes in the order they were loaded and overrides them there. The bullet and the enemy bullet both just if they're not dead, which is what's stored in Boolean 1, then they call to the factory to create a bullet based off of the values passed into the node. So here in Tank's recreate and store is completely new. You can see where I'm setting the tag. I store the color, position, and scale. I don't need the rotation since that's calculated on update due to terrain checking. Instead, I use that first matrix to store the various camera vectors rather than adding new vectors to the storage node class. I just use the matrix I already have. I also store the health and the current angle. And then here you can see that I get all that data back out, and then I also get the camera, set orient position, and then update it so that it snaps right back to my position immediately. The new position of the tank, that is. Enemy is pretty much the same as last time, just with a tag now also. And then the bullet is, all it needs to store is its position and rotation, as well as a Boolean to check whether it's dead. Because the way that my, I don't know if you remember this, you probably don't, but the way my reload works is it just calls initialize on everything first. Or rather, everything remains in the queue even after it despawns. So I need to have some kind of check to make sure that the things that have despawned don't actually regenerate themselves, so I just only do that if they're not dead. And the reason that I have to do that and I can't just remove them from the list is because, like I was saying earlier, it calls initialize first and then overrides everything. So the enemies that are dead will be recreated, and I need to keep the dead enemies in the list so that they can be overridden, so that otherwise the enemies will respawn after you unpause, if that makes sense. So, and then the enemy base bullet is pretty much like that as well. So, scene exit and store. I can take a look at some of the stuff that I did on the game side, but most of the work I did was in finding textures and in the putting them in load resource. So that's not going to be anything too fancy, but I did add various objects here, various control objects. A start hack, a restart hack, an unpause hack. The unpause hack's already been here. It just pauses and unpauses the game by letting you go back when you hit enter. Start hack just takes you to scene 1 when you hit 1, and if you hit 2, then it reads data from file and then uses that to recreate the scene. That was also there last time as part of the personal project. And the restart hack is new. And what that does is just when you hit enter, it goes back to this first scene. So no loading here. I just force you to loop back to the original to start over from the beginning. Because if you lose or win, then I don't think it makes much sense that you'd be able to load your data after that. And I also have some rather simple background objects, and all they do is they keep a sprite that represents the backgrounds that I was using, and it makes them the size of the screen and draws them every frame and then deletes them. So that's what all 4 of these are going to be. It's just the 4 screens that I'm using. So there's that. So I will have the documents up as well. Again, I'm probably not going to go through them manually since I know you're going to read them anyway. And I shouldn't need to explain what's in the document, otherwise it's not a very good document. So I was having a little trouble trying to generate class diagrams through Visual Studio. It was crashing on me. So I'll keep trying at it, but if I can't get that to work, then you might be getting some lovely handmade diagrams from me. So that's something you get to look forward to. So that's everything. See you next time.